This video is a recording of a live event, about an hour and 15-minute webinar, and it's really packed with all sorts of energy healings and information and explorations into the fine abstract layers of creation. I hope you love it. If you do, please like and subscribe. Thanks for being with me. I'm excited. And thank you all for being with me, and thank you for being here. So we'll start with first a brief description of what is energy healing. Then we'll do a 3 minutes of silence. Then we will do the prayer of gratitude. Then we will do a brief review of yesterday's session, and then we will dive into today's session. And I will do my best to keep everything succinct and efficient as we're going along. All right, what is energy healing? Energy healing is using attention as the instrument for promoting change. And attention is powerful, and it does promote change. It affects everything on which it lands. There's a principle from physics called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and it's based on the fact that physicists, quantum physicists especially, discover that when they put their attention on really, really fine particles of creation, that just the act of putting their attention on them changes what they perceive, that the flow of their attention shifts their perception. And the example being looking at an electron that's going around an atom, that you can put your attention on that electron to identify its location. But if you identify its location, you can't tell which direction it's spinning. Or you can put your attention on to determine which direction the electron is spinning, but when you do that, you can't figure out where the location is. So you need the spin in order to, and the spin includes movement. So anyway, this was a principle from physics, but it actually, physics is wonderful because it reflects very, very fine, I would say quantum physics of all the sciences, or say for maybe mathematics at advanced levels, reflects such fine laws of nature, the very deepest, most fundamental laws of nature. And it's fascinating how the world is awakening from many angles at the same time, right? From the window of science, and from the window of development of consciousness, and from the window of energy healing. And we're coming at it from lots of angles, and that's really good because more perspectives equals broader comprehension. Anyway, yeah, so in energy healing, we're using attention, and attention has a multidimensional reality, and it is source material. It is the material, a very pure form of the material of the source of creation that we direct with our intention, and brings the qualities of source with it wherever it goes. So if something hurts and we put our attention on it, any mommy knows this, if you put your attention on something that hurts in your body or in somebody else's body, it just makes it feel better. And you can direct your attention through different chakras like your hand chakra. And if you have pain anywhere in your body, you can use your hand chakra to go where that place, that painful spot is, and you'll notice immediately that the pain reduces. Putting the hand chakra there helps. Oh, look, 5 people raise their hands. Yeah, right? So we know from experience, this works. It's a good thing. Thank you, everybody. So the exciting thing for me about the webinars is that we have this opportunity to work together as a collective, and we uncover new knowledge, and we do amazing healing work, and it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm excited to dive into today's session. The next step will be our moment of silence, and the moment of silence is here to support everybody's ability to have a moment of experiencing the source of creation together as a collective, just like those group meditations. Yesterday, before we dived into our moment of silence, our webinar collective, all of you brilliant, amazing, light-filled souls, organized yourselves into a kind of coherent relationship with each other. And it was so beautiful that, oh, here I'm doing the review of yesterday already. It's okay, we'll get everything in. in its right order, in the divine order, that I see, I see, I see. I see what our participant from California was saying. She was saying a six-sided pyramid. And when we think of six-sided, we think like this, right? 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. So the six-sided form is a pyramid which goes both in and out. So this organization is stabilizing in right now, even before we go into our silence. The nice thing about such a pyramid is that when we're looking at it from the subtler levels of our own consciousness, which are independent of space and time, then every point points to wholeness. And whichever direction you face, you still have a point in front of you. It's very interesting. All right. Well, on that note, let's close our eyes and just see how it goes. After about 3 minutes, I'll ask everyone to open the eyes, and we'll take a minute so that the nervous system has time to integrate and adjust as we come out. All right, let's close our eyes. All right. Let's take a minute and then open the eyes. the three-sided, the six-sided. Once we start multiplying sides, there's no end to the multiplication. There's no end to the number of sacred geometrical forms that can be created. And as a result, there's no end to the field of possibilities of ways that we can experience wholeness. My experience was that it was very comfortable to have options, that for everyone having options, everyone could find a space. They could find, it's like we know where we stand in relationship to the source of creation and in relationship to each other. And that's lovely. It's like, it's a stability that provides a sense of being like home, being home and being comfortable, being in the lap of mother, something like that. And also because when you have forms that go in different directions at the same time, right? You have a pyramid going this way and a pyramid going that way, then thanks everybody for the hands raised. That's really sweet. Yeah, the validation is very sweet. When the pyramid goes in both directions, it also accommodates the need for purification that naturally, spontaneously comes along with the integration of wholeness. As wholeness comes in, stabilizes in the system, the body lets go of what it doesn't need. And it throws off the energies, the old energies. It heals. It heals. So thank you, everyone. Beautiful. All right. Thank you to the source of creation for being everything, for being us, and for being our ancestors and the relationship that we have with our own DNA and with our own physiologies, to the eternal tradition of wisdom, without whose guidance and connection between the absolute and the relative, we'd be kind of lost. Thank you for our ability to work efficiently and concisely, for the ability to go right into the seeds of imbalance and address imbalance from that level, for the process of energy healing that we're doing in this live webinar, that it can stabilize and integrate the technology of energy healing for everyone. And of course, it's my hope that during this webinar, we meet and exceed everyone's desires and wishes and intentions for our time together. It is a tremendous privilege and a joy to be of service. Thank you for this opportunity to be here for you. I really appreciate it. It's magical for me too, and I really appreciate it. So thank you everyone for being here. Let's have some fun. All right. So the title of the webinar is Owning the Keys to Fulfillment. And in the review from yesterday, I covered like 3 basic keys to fulfillment, but we discovered or uncovered, I'd say yet another one while we were at it. And the first key is a really obvious one. It's the ability to contact or integrate the source experience of the source of creation. And I think for most people, I didn't spend a lot of time with that because I think most people in this webinar are pretty familiar with that. But for those who are not, check my 112-point matrix in the knowledge base on my website. And, you know, I definitely recommend transcending meditation, because that is a great way to do that. But, you know, the source of creation can be found between every breath, between every thought, in the gaps between waking, dreaming, and sleeping. It can be found in all the gaps. So awareness or attention to the gaps will help. And we can transcend from any of the senses of perception or mind and intellect. So there are options. There are options. And this webinar is called Owning the Keys, Owning the Keys. So owning means going in and doing that experience on your own. Own. And the more you do, the more it influences and affects the form of the nervous system. It refines and strengthens and purifies the nervous system. And higher states of consciousness and more unbounded experiences, like high-level experiences, are founded on the state of the nervous system. So the nervous system needs to be in as comfortable condition as we can get it, as purified condition as we can get it. All right, that was point number one. Point number two, we talked about the origins of attention. And once the spectrum of, or the range of awareness or attention has been identified from the most superficial, like coming right out of our senses, gross senses of perception, all the way down to the source of creation, we suddenly have like a sort of world or a spectrum in which we experience reality, and awareness can be placed anywhere in there, anywhere within that spectrum, for different results from different locations. Where are you coming from? Basically, where are you coming from? And that ties in really nicely with who are you? It ties in with who we know ourselves to be, because we're coming from ourself. So if we understand ourself in terms of that source of creation, wholeness, and everything, all that source and all this manifest field, then what we think of as self is really, really big. And that opens the door for lots of possibilities. The download coming in right now has to do with wholeness in every point. Wholeness in every point. So wherever we position ourselves across the spectrum of experience, always wholeness is there. Always. There's nothing outside of being. It is everything. It is in everything. It is everything. The third point had to do with pure potential. And this I talked about in terms of supportive nature. But I feel as if we all got a chance to experience it. We all got a chance to take a collective step in the direction of increasing pure potential, increasing the ability for our pure potential. Everyone has pure potential. It's that original seed of at the foundation of our experience, of our lives, of our physiologies. And I use the word pure because it's really, when it comes into being, it's such a perfect expression of wholeness, of totality, of divinity. And one of the main principles of this webinar is, how do we organize ourselves so that pure potential, which is already here, makes its way out to the surface, and it expresses itself without bumping into blockages or corruption, becoming corrupted, or any impediments, no impediments. So we're looking at the keys to fulfillment are the keys that allow the pure potential to rise to the surface as fulfillment, and do so in a complete and graceful and dignified and beautiful, comfortable, happy manner. I'm experiencing a download coming in having to do with things like moral compass and the way we organize our relationship with our physiologies, because the blockages exist in the denser levels of creation. So positioning on the level of awareness or attention allows that pure potential to come to the surface in a way that it can even bypass old stresses or stresses that we haven't handled yet, we haven't purified yet out of the system. There's pure potential, has pure, or I'd say has infinite possibilities within it, which means that it can transcend relative blockages or corruption or problems. Why not? Why not? What cannot be done with consciousness? There's nothing that cannot be done. So finally, the last point as review from yesterday is that, thank you everybody, is that we discovered that organizing our silence as a collective was very powerful, and it allowed the transcending or the silence that each one of us experiences to fathom ever deeper layers of the infinite ocean of being. Not that the ocean of being has any defining qualities. So I use the word layers. But maybe because it's actually quality-less, because being is quality-less, it was more as if we penetrated our awareness, our experience of silence. It activated a level of bliss in the silence that was richer and more complete and more incredible than we had ever done before. And as the session went on, we realized that the organization of our group on a subtle level, like how, because we're all sitting in our different isolated locations, we've got people from all over the world, countries all over the world here, that on the level of consciousness, we organized ourselves around a sacred geometrical form, which was kind of a pyramid form. And then it was suggested today to go into more of a six-sided pyramid form, which was a brilliant suggestion. Thank you. And this seems to have opened the door for, it's a key for collectively fathoming the silence of being more completely. And what's cool, what we discovered yesterday that was very cool, was that when we work together as a collective and we fathom that silence together, that silent source of creation, then each one of us brings home that deeper dive. So if we're able as a group to dive into the field of consciousness in a way that's unusually great and greater than what we can experience as our individuals, then when we come out of that experience, we now own that level of depth as individuals. Thank you for raising hands. That means you guys understand what I'm saying, because it's really abstract what I just said, but yes, oh, look, guys, you get it. You're so good. So this is a tool, this is a key. So it means actually that one of the keys to fulfillment is organizing ourselves, which isn't really an old key, right? I mean, I should say, which isn't really a new key. It's an old key. Humans have known for time immemorial that when we work together in social structure, we can accomplish more, obviously, but we're adding a new modern twist onto that. And that is to engage the technologies of energy healing as a collective. So, of course, after yesterday's session, it seemed evident that it would be useful to see if we can take that another step further. And of course, that's been happening also since ancient times. The point came out that that's why the one of the values of a pyramid is if you have, say, a cultural celebration on an equinox or a solstice or whatever date was deigned holy, and everyone stands around the base of the pyramid and looks up, we all look to the same point. So that means if the technology is there to dive deep into the silence of being, and then also, right, the inside and the outside pyramids, and also be able to look up into how from that deep, deep foundation of consciousness, we affect the material world, then if all the people around the edge are looking into the same point with the same intention at the point, it's very, very powerful. It's very powerful to support the manifestation of that intention. The thing about the multi-pointed pyramid, multi-sided or multi-pointed pyramid, is it allows different groups to focus on different areas. And we know that there are some like basic areas that everybody cares about. We care about health. We care about resource, right? Like wealth, health, wealth, resource. We care about relationships. We care about the development spiritually. Those are kind of pillars in a way, pillars of our world, of pillars of desire and fulfillment, we could say. Those are four, like the four cardinal directions, right? The four cardinal directions. And then the six, the up and the down, connect us to wholeness and wholeness at both an up and a down end. Like a loop, it's a loop. All right, that's a lot of abstract. Let's go a little more concrete. There was a point that I wanted to bring out, and it is related to fulfillment in a kind of in more of a practical way. And that is that our desires lead us. When our desires align with cosmic evolution, they lead us to experiences that are supportive of health, physical health. And that as humans, we are ever working within the laws of nature of our physiologies. And fulfillment is the life does become more fulfilling. Like if you're grappling with long-term health concerns or long-term difficult situations in your world, I can tell you that because this is about owning, we want to own this experience. We want to own this step that takes us, how do we get from where we are to a more fulfilled state in any of these areas that are interesting to people or any other areas that come to mind. And the point is that it requires a kind of raising, ultimately it requires a raising of consciousness. And raising of consciousness is based on a give and take between the physical nervous system and the field of energy of self, the field of consciousness or awareness. So we have a give and take. We have a kind of a working relationship. We're defining our boundaries of what we're working with in order to raise ourselves up to the next level, And when I say that, I mean like the next level of supportive nature, which for some of you, that word automatically means something. For those who it doesn't mean something, the point is that supportive nature means when the laws of nature of creation are behind your intentions and your desires. So as consciousness grows and expands, we become more enlightened, if we want to use that word, or more awakened. I think a lot of people use that word. Then what we find is that nature fulfills our desires even before the desire has really fully surfaced, right? Someone just brings you something and you're like, oh, I needed that. Oh, I wanted that. You're in your job and you're thinking something's not quite right, but I don't know what it is. And then somebody makes you an offer for a better job and you realize, oh, that's it. I sort of outgrew this position. I outgrew what I was doing and I needed to move on to a higher, more fulfilling, better pay, better situation. All right. So it becomes more like that. In the beginning, when the consciousness is lower, it's more like we suffer and we struggle and we experience suffering. And after some long time of experienced suffering, we finally get to, oh, I'm experiencing suffering because I needed to change jobs, something like that. And then we go into the big look for the new job, and it can take a long time or run into boundaries or problems. So as consciousness expands, these types of desires are fulfilled more quickly. And that's a fact of the creation, because the universe does want us to evolve. It does want us to make the right choices. Okay, so there's this give and take between the nervous system and the consciousness. And part of the story is increasing sensitivity to the entire field, feeling that healing coming on, diving into the silence of being, clearing a lot of fear. There's fear in the body. It looks like it's sitting between the astral and etheric levels of the physiology. And this fear is, it's born of a subtle understanding of a particular type of laws of nature, a particular type of, like a family of laws of nature that have to do with these laws of nature control what manifests and what doesn't manifest. These are laws of nature that sit in a subtle field of consciousness, which are you could think of them as codes or control switches for what actually makes it out to the surface and what doesn't make it out to the surface. It's very interesting. And these laws of nature, they reside in an area of the field of consciousness, which isn't just, most of the laws of nature, they sit, they're seeds, they sit down at the causal level of creation. But these laws of nature, they have to necessarily have like tentacles or extensions out into the denser levels of our creation. As a result, they reside in layers of creation. We could say realms of creation, because there are realms for all the different layers of density or subtlety of consciousness. They reside in realms that have more form to them. So the causal realm is the seed or source of all the laws of nature and your pure potential and so forth. But it's very formless. It's quite formless. It's like a big ocean of resonance. It's like a humming ocean of hums, hum. And sometimes we hear it in our ears, we hear the hum. So that's the causal level of creation. Oh, lots of people hear the hum. Yeah, right? But these laws of nature, because they reside in denser, they reside in environments that become more and more concrete as they rise up. And we find them. We know them. There's a lovely artist named Jürgen Ziwe, and he just published a beautiful YouTube video. He does like 3D virtual art on YouTube. He's also a longtime meditator, and he explores a lot of these realms that are more like they have qualities or features or characteristics. Unlike the formless source of creation, there's form there. There's form there. Fear, the reason there's fear is that we have not been super familiar with these realms. We haven't had the technology until the technology for transcending, number one, and coupled with the technology of energy healing, we haven't had the technological resources to really do a lot of exploring in these fields. But now we do. And we have to quickly, like any living thing that finds itself in a new location, we have to quickly find our way and figure out what the rules and the laws of nature are that govern these areas of creation, so that we are always working in a dignified, safe, comfortable, and progressive state, right? We want to always be on the evolutionary flow in a comfortable way, What I'm seeing in this part of our live webinar is we're taking the work that started out with the awakening of the earth chakra in Australia about a year ago. The fires in Australia started about a year ago. The whole thing started up about a year ago. We're extending this now, and we're understanding and working in the finer values in a way we have not ever before. And I'm completely off my notes. This is just new stuff. So in the realms of form, the laws of nature that both allow manifestation to come forth and stop manifestation to come forth reside. In these realms, the shapes that we see, the forms that exist, are I'm going to say, when I first discovered, and this was part of the downloads that I got in the last 2 weeks before this webinar, last 3 weeks before this webinar, I'm going to say these forms are essentially illusory. But I can't say that they're any more illusory than the way we would think of this material realm as also being essentially an illusion, because it's like a dream of the creator. But nonetheless, even these illusions, they can affect us. And this is the important point, is that how the nervous system is affected. So in other words, we can be as much affected by behaviors that we take in the gross material superficial level of creation as we can by, say, an action that we take in dream state, right? Like if in dream state you do an act of kindness that really helps somebody, that's good for your nervous system. That heals and uplifts your nervous system. In fact, it rises because of a healing that was taking place in your nervous system at that time. And that experience, that dream experience, gave expression to that healing. And it's the same when we do it here in this material world. Somewhere inside the heart is healing, and we take an action step that helps somebody. That's beautiful. And the action step that helps integrates the experience, and it makes it solid in the nervous system. So the nervous system acts differently in dream state than it does in waking state, but the healing is integrated through the experience nonetheless. The value of the experience that we put on it, the value we put on it, so whether it's, for example, a morally acceptable action or not, is based on not so much the effect on other people, but the effect on our nervous systems. We have to think about that for a second. That when the action upholds and uplifts a more optimal functioning of the nervous system, my son used the word, I wrote it down, when the nervous system is well optimized, when it's well optimized through the action, then this action is deemed morally sound. And our nervous systems, created through divine blueprint, right, coming straight from the creator, straight from cosmic intelligence, these amazing nervous systems that we possess are made, and they've been cultivated over centuries and centuries. They've refined to express the highest intentions of the creator. So we can trust that when an action produces an experience of comfort, feeling like your conscience, that the conscience feels all right with that action, this is the indication that it is aligned with natural law. And that means that sometimes it will also align with, most of the time, it will align with cultural conditioning as well. Because our cultural standards and practices and moral codes and so forth have evolved from this state of the nervous system. So the principle here is that the higher consciousness we gain, the better optimized the nervous system becomes. The better optimized the nervous system becomes, that reflects on our choices and decisions and actions. And then that gives rise to more optimization of the nervous system, higher consciousness. So that as consciousness rises, the individual does reflect higher codes of conduct, more mature behavior, more compassionate, but also more wisdom. This is a connection between wisdom, the physical nervous system, and consciousness. There's a quote. The quote is, this is from Vedas, and I'm bringing it because I do feel that one of the important things that we are doing as a collective here is we are modernizing ancient wisdom. I mean, we're blessed that the ancients built pyramids and that they had all that Vedic knowledge and all that. We're so blessed. But in this modern time, we have challenges that we're facing that are unique, very unique, right? And like the ancients weren't facing challenges quite like the ones that we face today. So part of the importance of these webinars is to modernize that ancient wisdom. So the ancient quote is, your guru can protect you from the gods, but the gods cannot protect you from your guru. Yeah, interesting quote. I think the principle there, the principle is that first of all, that the human condition can rise to a point where we have such exquisite control over natural law that it transcends even fundamental laws of nature. Because I think of the gods as fundamental structures in our causal bodies. It gives us the ability with our consciousness to even transcend specific laws of nature. Like if there's a specific law of nature that says that you in your lifetime will never make very much money. Right? That's one of those laws of nature, right? It's like blocking the flow. Like, you know, in your full potential that you deserve to be completely affluent and completely full, right? But there's this like law of nature sitting there and it's blocking it every time. You come to a point where you can transcend those laws of nature. Keys to fulfillment. Keys to fulfillment. So the guru stands as a living representative of the pinnacle of enlightened development or awakened development of consciousness, and also acts as a bridge between the relative and the absolute. But also is an expression of yourself. The guru is part of you because, as we talked about before, your nervous system, your physical nervous system has this ability to experience, to position as a point of perspective through your individual physiology, but also through the physiologies of the entire universe, through the physiologies of the trees and through the physiology of the light coming through the trees and through everything, everything, everything. And to own that experience, to own it. So it's very important where we put our attention. Like that's one of the keys to fulfillment. Where do you put your attention? What do you choose to focus on? When negativity arises, which it inevitably does, the focus is always on the solution, always on the resolution, which brings us, the word resolution, brings us to a point of resolution in our webinar today. Because we were at this point yesterday, earlier in the session, we were at this point where we took a second dive into the silence of being to see what could be accomplished through the quality of resolution. The quality of completion or resolution is, it contains a value of wholeness that is more, I would say, more expressed than certain other qualities of wholeness. Like we could say the values of Dharma, you know, truth, compassion, purity, and the ability to letting go, tapas. These are qualities of being, of divine being, and they're beautiful, they're useful tools. But the quality of resolution or completion, it kind of has wholeness already built into it, knitted into it. It has wholeness knitted into it. So resolution or completion is also, oh, and how it interfaces, one more little note on that accord, how it interfaces with the nervous system is every time we have an experience of resolution and completion, it causes a dopaminergic flush to occur inside the brain, because the orbitofrontal cortex, which is right up here, sort of behind your eyes, it's in the prefrontal cortex area. There's a line of, there's like a channel that runs from where the dopamine is produced in the brainstem up to the orbitofrontal cortex, and the orbitofrontal cortex acts a little bit like a magnet when we complete something, when we have a resolution, and it draws that the whole system works together as a wholeness, but the substantia nigra and ventral tegmental areas produce that that dopamine. It goes shoop, and it goes up into the orbitofrontal cortex, and it gives you that feeling of, ah, I just finished something good. I just did it. I did it. And it's one of the ways that we interact with ourselves to flow dopamine, to flow dopamine, to flow dopamine. This is so precious, and it's so valuable for anybody with Parkinson's. Oh, let's make a note. I should do energy healing for Parkinson's. Can you just make a note so I don't forget? I'll do that I'll upload as a separate. But for anybody who even has anything even closely related to that, here, this helps. This helps. This healing, this activation that we're about to go into will be for that, will be for Parkinson's, or for even anything remotely in the direction of that. Starting out awareness in the top of the brainstem, where the ventral tegmental area and the substantia nigra, in particular, the substantia nigra, reside. As we put our attention on that area of the brain, attention acts as a guide to draw the soma that your body produces into that area. The amount and quality of soma that your body produces is a direct result of the refinement of your nervous system. That's why we're doing this work, where we work back and forth between the relative and the absolute. We're healing the nervous system, then it produces better, then the body produces better soma. Then the better soma goes and it heals the body more. In this case, the top of the brainstem. No big surprise that people who taste soma taste it in the back of the throat, which is right near that area, right near that bliss-producing area. And people who hear the soma gushing, like water rushing down a declivity, they hear it in the ears, which is just right there, so close to that area. No coincidences, no coincidences. This flow of soma awakens the body's most fundamental intelligence in the top of the brain stem. And the body's fundamental intelligence in that area brings balance, and it purifies, it nourishes, it wakes up at the top of the brain stem. And at this point, I would expect people are feeling some energy in that part of the physiology. Balance is so important, because the flow of dopamine through the brain touches the small, beautiful organs of the third ventricle, which are regulating organs in the body. And that supports the body regulating hormonal flow, appetite, the way we handle sleep, many, many things. Basically all the regulating and control center is there in that very deep center part of the brain. And the dopamine goes right through that area, right into that area. There's one channel that goes right up into the pineal gland. Balance, balance, because balance aligns with nature's intelligence. It aligns with cosmic intention. It aligns you and it aligns the way your body regulates itself with the original divine intention for these physiologies. I'm noticing as this balance is increasing from the brain stem and extending into these beautiful, delicate, essential areas of the brain. Also, the heart is enjoying. The heart has its own neural web, and so does the gut. Hello. So the gut and the heart are also enjoying a kind of echoing effect of the healing that's taking place in the brain. Oh, look, lots of people are experiencing that. Sweet. You guys are so sweet. You are so sweet. You are so beautiful. What we're doing, we're using our attention. We're focusing our attention. All we did was we focused our attention on the brainstem, right? It's so simple. But what the heart and the gut bring to the brainstem is a deep healing for the substantia nigra itself. Because, okay, guys, this is very interesting. The substantia nigra means black, because the tissue of the substantia nigra is actually colored with pigment. And the pigment, I've read a lot about this because I've helped people who have Parkinson's. And the scientists don't understand how the pigment actually influences the Parkinson's, but they know that the substantia nigra of people who have Parkinson's has no pigment in it. It's white. And what makes that black pigment in there? It is this beautiful, luscious, like very sensual energy that is produced in the heart and belly area of our bodies. So what's happening is the healing happens here up in the head area. We focus our attention on the top of the brainstem. That activates a kind of Davic intelligence through the whole body. It rebalances the regulation of all the systems, like the lymphatic system and the circulatory system and the endocrine system and the musculoskeletal system and so forth. These are all controlled in the third ventricle of the brain. The result of that is that the heart and the gut start to feel blissful. They start to feel blissful. And when the heart and the gut area, when I say gut area, I mean, I really mean that the Mahamarmas, these big energy centers in the heart and gut area, when they start to feel blissful, they produce energy that's absolutely luscious, that's absolutely delicious, it's absolutely like satisfying. It's satisfying. It brings completion. It brings fulfillment. It's an expression. It's the way our bodies understand fulfillment. And our bodies, you know, the language the body speaks is the language of perception and experience. So our bodies understand fulfillment as these feelings, which are expressed as specific neuropeptides and other neurochemicals. Those neurochemicals, they come up because our awareness is still here. For those of you who are still here, they're still up in the brainstem, and it feeds into the substantia nigra, and it literally blackens it. It literally pigmentizes it. It makes it full of pigment. The pigment is a material expression of the luscious, beautiful, sensual energies produced by the body. In the right place at the right time. We just need to be at the right place at the right time, and then everything else falls together. Then fulfillment makes its way to the surface. Good job, everybody. Sweet healing, sweet. Thank you. All right, I see some more questions came in. So let's take a look at some of the questions. And one of them, this one question came in right at the beginning. It's such a good question. I'm going to put my question box over there. So if I'm not looking at you, it's because I'm reading the questions. All right. This lady says that she'd like to focus the collective attention on the point of wholeness and balance collectively. I think this is a brilliant idea, by the way, regarding mother wounding, which is the root cause of our feeling of separation and the self-limiting patterns that hinder our fulfillment resulting from that separation. Beautifully said, very eloquently said. The pain and fear and sense of inadequacy we took on as babies or children. It seems that healing this world, we heal our relationship with ourselves and therefore all relationships, including our relationship with Mother Earth, Gaia, and all life. All life is relationship. Beautiful. The first thing, yes, we will do it. And we will do this as an exercise because you just gave us an exercise, which is going to be totally brilliant and fun and wonderful. But before we dive into it, I just would like to add one note to this regarding mother wounding, which is that, and I've made this point before, but it's good to make it again, which is that the relationship is an internal relationship ultimately. So many families have a certain amount of dysfunction in them. And it's pretty common. And I think that's why I really honor this question, because I know a lot of families have dysfunction. And the dysfunction is responsible for a lot of the problems that we face as a collective. It's also a choice that evolved souls make in order to provide a context or an environment for them to lean into their inner resources and evolve qualities, evolve skills of focusing attention that are advanced of what a person who lives and grows up in a completely safe environment experiences. So just saying that sometimes the teacher is not a cheerleader teacher, like go, go, rah, rah, rah. The teacher is more like a harsh teacher. Sometimes that can happen. But teacher nonetheless. And again, like moving into like a new unknown environment, you have to very quickly learn the ropes. You have to become street smart really fast. So for people whose consciousness is high enough, such wounding will give rise to greater capabilities, greater skill sets, more sensitivity, more intuition, right? Got to see it coming a mile away because you don't want to take chances of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. So when the consciousness is high enough, but because there's a spectrum in our world, and even within families, there's a spectrum, right? Like in a family could have a dysfunctional parent and some child has more high consciousness, some not so much. And so the child with not so much high consciousness doesn't necessarily get street smart very fast because it takes longer for the knowledge to integrate into their nervous system because it's all based on purity or refinement of, it's also based on or interfaces with refinement of the nervous system. And also, you know, if you're growing up, for those who grew up in households where there was smoking or drinking, which is very damaging to the nervous system, right? All right. We're going to take our moment of, we're going to join hands around the pyramid. We're going to join hands around the pyramid, and we're going to put the task of healing mother wounding at the apex of the pyramid. First relationship, first friendship. Let's close our eyes. Healing for mother wounding, healing at the apex. This is especially for those individuals whose consciousness is not high enough to glean evolutionary value from the experience or to easily glean much. For those who are dull or asleep, or they're very early in their evolutionary process, or they're struggling with challenges, physiological challenges that make it extra difficult. Abuse. The abuse causes a shutdown. So for those who got shut down, the resolution or completion is coming now. The completion, the completion. I was seeing such a empty space in the heart area. The heart energy center for a lot of people who've had this has became kind of like an empty, an empty ground. The light from the healing enters that empty space and fulfills it. But more than that, the wisdom of the reasons for such an experience also need to come with the fullness. You know, the first energy that came up from this healing was a flow from child to mother of just incredible, unbounded, exquisite love. And that amazing, amazing ability to love even a person who is abusive. It doesn't mean that you should put up with the abuse, but each person is a manifestation of the source of creation. Each person is a manifestation of wholeness. And so when we find the wholeness in them, this supports their growth. Because nature's working through all of us at the same time. Nature's evolution, the evolution of the mother creation, the evolution of divine being is sort of like a multifaceted evolution, and it includes each point of perspective in a particular situation. So it's like risk and reward. You know, the child is hurt or damaged or suffers, but the abuser creates some karma that supports it forms their path. The abuser forms their path forward, and that's the path that will lead them to enlightenment, that will lead them out of the darkness that would cause the abuse in the first place. When you're two, you can't really set down boundaries with your parents. You can't even run away from home. You can't do anything. At that point, it's more a matter of finding the inner safe space and navigating through it. And there were a lot of children, a lot of little children were included through this healing. Were supported with levels of creativity and intelligence within them, accessible to them within them, that can bring solutions. And this is where a person really needs support of nature. Because if you're stuck in a household, if you're 2 or 3 or 4, and you're stuck in a household with somebody who's abusing you, you absolutely need that extra support of nature so that you're at the right place at the right time and you are not in harm's way. when harm starts racking around the place. Extra supportive nature, extra supportive nature. It's very interesting that this healing should be suggested at this time, because one of the things that I noticed happening over the last months, especially since school started, is that children who are in an abusive situation at home, if it becomes more difficult for them to garner support from school administrators. If you're not going to school, or if homeschooling is an option, and the parents are afraid that if the child goes to school, people will see bruises or something like that, then what it means is it becomes more difficult for that child to find someone who'll be on their side. So there are more children who are more vulnerable right now. But being takes many forms. Being takes many forms. Support takes many forms. This is where our healing collective, gets a chance to stretch ourselves a little bit. Remember, I was saying you can experience reality through all the different points of creation. We experience ourselves. We experience ourselves manifesting through those angelic forms, those high level consciousness forms, which are embodied at our the causal levels of our body, so they're completely accessible to us. Those forms which are experts at navigating the field between the causal and the relative, where the laws of nature that support certain things manifesting or don't support certain things manifesting. Those forms that control the codes. These are the codes of manifestation, essentially. And they control the codes. These are you. These are part of your body. We're just getting to know parts of our bodies, that's all. Parts that we were unfamiliar with before, now we're more familiar. Just taking a moment for that to come in as a download. Those forms that can set themselves up within our physiology, or they can set themselves up within a collective level of our world and support the protection of the vulnerable and the innocent. And that, I would say, is a review of what that silence was all about. Thank you for the amazing question. Beautiful stuff. Hey, somebody's wearing the same color as me. Yes, it's Saturn Day. Saturn is blue. Oh, yes, thank you. Could you make a note to send the link to the artist Jürgen Ziewe, who I just Jurgenziewe. He's on YouTube. Yeah, we'll send that as a link. And I think I might have sent something. No, I sent Harry Alto's artwork before. Yeah, it's lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. Oh, here's a really good question. I said this thing about optimizing the nervous system, and oh, you're so smart, and you're thinking advanced. As I was thinking, the question is, does it mean that people at lower consciousness can feel optimized if they take actions that harm others? No. No, because the human being, the human nature, it's true that at lower levels of consciousness, there's like less sensitivity. There's less awareness, right? The awareness is just coming through certain specified channels, whereas as we come to higher levels, we have this flexibility where we can move our awareness through all the channels at the same time. But the nervous system knows. The physiology is made of cosmic stuff. The physiology is made of God intention. The blueprint of the human physiology is divine intention realized. And so if a person of lower consciousness thinks that the good idea is to say, go steal something from somebody else and get that little kickback of, oh, I stole this piece of paper or whatever. They will get mixed signals. One of the signals will be a big pat on the back of like, I just stole something from somebody. And the other signal will be from the physiology directly of like, oh, that just made me a little more crude. There's something called behavioral rasayanas. Rasayana means like a medicine. And behavioral rasayanas, and I know a lot of you are already familiar with them, but they include things like keeping company with the wise and always speaking the truth and keeping a regular routine and things like that. These are the types of actions that produce an optimization in the nervous system. So being truthful and being kind, speaking the truth in a kind way. If I can find a list of behavioral scientists, I will send them. But you may be, thank you, but you may be able to find them online yourself. But I think I have a list somewhere, so I'll see what I can do about that. Right, so I hope that answers the question. People lower consciousness feel optimized. The reason, now I have to say one more thing about this, because it's a little more complicated than that. It is a little more complicated, which is that the higher consciousness a person attains, the more mastery over natural law they have. And it means that they have supportive nature for whatever they decide to do. It also means that if they violate natural law, if they do something unkind or cruel or wrong or something, their karma will come back to them instantly. So at lower consciousness, the criminal can commit the crime, but he doesn't like pay for the crime right away. Whereas at higher consciousness, if you do a crime, you make a mistake, immediately you're looking at the effects of that. But also a more optimized nervous system is able to slough off any kind of negative effects more quickly as well. So the lower consciousness nervous system is like more rigid, and it takes longer to realize, oh, I guess that was really dumb of me to have committed that crime. But then it also takes longer for the physiology to kind of bounce back and to work its way gradually, slowly into a state of higher optimization. Why? Because the optimization of the nervous system goes back and forth with the consciousness. So the quicker we learn the lesson and we realize why it was wrong, why was it wrong to steal something? See, that supports the nervous system coming out of it more quickly. That's why that quote, the guru can protect you from the gods, but the gods can't protect you from the guru. If the guru decides that you blew it or something, and they're like, then, good luck, because the guru is drawing all this power. And that's why it's good to choose somebody who's kind. That's why it's best to cultivate the inner relationship with the highest value of guru that exists on the level of consciousness, that is the perfection of that form. Causal form. So causal form is your causal form. Then everything you do will be handled with compassion. As one person mentioned, forgiveness. We have access to all knowledge by having access to the source of creation, which was point number 1 in this session. We're just at our time, but let's just check. There's just 2 quick little other things. The functioning of the diamond. Oh, this is the lady who mentioned the thing about the diamond pyramid. The functioning of the diamond pyramid for her was the heavenly apex channels. The heavenly apex channels the love. The earthly apex releases the fear. Yes, I was seeing that too, that because the energy moves in both directions, you get both the incoming of cosmic information, and also the outpouring of imbalances, the purification of imbalances. Beautiful. The other thing that I didn't mention earlier, but I saw it at one of our silences, but I forgot to mention it because there was so much richness in those silences, was that, and this ties into the concept or the principle of it being a diamond pyramid, is that it's like a fractal, that it's like diamonds, it's like triangles within triangles within triangles within triangles within triangles, so that at each point in the structure, you get the whole structure is contained. And that's the principle behind the diamond, because the molecules are so tightly conjoined that they form this extremely orderly matrix, like in a real diamond, extremely orderly molecular matrix. That the shape of the outside is the same as the shape of the inside. Did you know that clay does that too? One of the reasons clay is so beautiful to work with is because it's made of molecules of, now I don't remember them exactly, silicon is one of them and so forth, but these molecules of clay, I just have to mention this, which is probably going to lead us into more stuff at our next webinars. These molecules can combine in a whole number of different ways. They combine in sets of threes, they combine in plates or tables, they combine in tables that are wedged together in particular types of relationships. They can combine in sets of twos and sets of threes and sets of fours and sets of sixes and sets of 12s, right? In multiples and sets of nines. And they can make little clusters that form together that make plates, or they can, so clay is a beautiful metaphor for the way consciousness works in the more in-between. The diamond is a beautiful metaphor more for how consciousness works at the very subtle, because it's like there's only one option, right? The tightest and the strongest bond, there's only one option there. But clay is very interesting because and that's what makes it malleable when you push it like that and then it stays. It's amazing stuff. Anyway, we shall play with clay more as we go on in our upcoming webinars, but thank you for the suggestion. She's also saying the fullness can then radiate in all four directions. Thank you for that beautiful insight. And one lady saying to thank you for my love and my devotion to the Guru, to Maharishi, who is my teacher. Thank you everyone for being with me. This has been lots of fun. I look forward to exploring. There's a whole lot more that we can explore in that area where the laws of nature either allow or disallow manifestation. There's like really a lot. So I'm looking forward to going there with you, visiting that place again, and definitely go visit in your dreams, because in the dream state, we can see that area with way finer detail, and Jürgen Ziwe's pictures will help wake you up on that as well. So thank you everyone for being with me. It's been really a wonderful ride, a wonderful time together, and looking forward to seeing everyone at the next webinar. Hopefully I'll see you 3 weeks from now. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of the weekend. Bye.